Steve Fraser is a historian, and he has a new book out, apparently. I've been trying to find the title of it. Maybe it was just an article. But Bill Moyers interviewed him last week, and we're seriously thinking of checking this guy out to get him on the program. But basically what he was pointing out was that there have been two Gilded Ages in American history. I would argue there probably been four, but one around the 1830s is the age of steam, and cotton gins and things picked up. One in the 1870s and 80s when the railroads and steel and the Industrial Revolution and the robber barons that came out of that. I would say that the third one was the Roaring Twenties. It was only 9 years long, but it was from 8 years, from 1921 to 1929. And the fourth one is right now, where the stock market's doing great. Rich people are doing better than ever, literally, now better than ever before in the history of the United States. But working people are actually getting poorer. 90% of Americans are going deeper in debt every year and have been since 2008, and arguably have been, at least incrementally or in terms of lost opportunity, have been since 1981, since Ronald Reagan came into office and completely changed the rules of economics in the United States. Moved us from FDR-onomics to Reaganomics, began his war on organized labor, took us from 33% unionization to 8% unionization, just basically devastated the infrastructure that Lyndon Johnson had put in place to lift people out of poverty and the infrastructure that would help people when capitalism failed. And so we are now living in this era of Reaganomics where, good luck, Charlie. So anyhow, the question that Steve Fraser asks and then answers is, why is it that during the Gilded Age of the late 19th century, the arguably 1880, through 1875 until 1910, why is it during that era workers were rising up? Why is it that in Ludlow, the mining company saw it necessary to go in with machine guns on the backs of trucks and murder men, women, and children living in canvas tents who were protesting labor policies? Why is it that the Pullman Porters strike, happened? Why is it that the Haymarket Square riots happened? Why is it that labor was in full-fledged revolt over the excesses of the robber barons and the paucity, the small amounts of money that were being paid to workers? Why were they willing to do that back during the last major Gilded Age, and they're not during this one? And he says basically, I don't want to be putting words in his mouth. This is more, I suppose, my thinking than his. But it seems that what he's saying, or in fact, actually, he never comes out and says this. This is my take on what he's saying. Because I've been wondering that same question. And one possible answer is we're just on the verge of it. Right? You're seeing now people, protesting in front of McDonald's. You've got the Our Walmart movement. You've got, actually, labor movements are starting to pick up. And President Obama this week, through the NLRB, actually significantly strengthened protections for organized labor. So it could be that, the answer is just, we don't shoot each other anymore, at least, labor and employers don't shoot each other. It's still cops shooting black people, but that's kind of a different topic. Although it does tie into this whole issue of economics and economic justice in the United States. But it could be that, we just don't shoot each other anymore, but we are going to the streets. And it's going to start picking up steam, and you're going to see, over the next couple of years, you're going to see something that looks like the tail end of the Gilded Age. It's possible. I mean, keep in mind, this brought Teddy Roosevelt to office or got him reelected. I don't think that McKinley ran as a progressive. But Roosevelt, when McKinley was assassinated halfway through his first year in office in 1901, and Teddy Roosevelt was his vice president, he became president, then he ran for re-election, and he won, being on a nakedly progressive platform. And he was followed by William Howard Taft, who was a progressive, and these were Republicans. And the problem that Teddy Roosevelt had and that Franklin Roosevelt had in the first couple of years of his presidency was he would pass laws like child labor laws, the Supreme Court would knock them down. But still, people were fighting back then, and they're not now. Why? I would suggest that back then, people were clawing. Most of the people who were in the low end of the labor force back, 150 years ago, or 120 years ago, most of the people in the low end of the labor force were first or second generation immigrants to this country who were clawing their way up from nothing. And they were just trying to get something. And so, hey, you fight for that. Whereas today, we have a nation of people who, during the FDR era, from 1933 until 1981, got a lot of stuff. I mean, look around you, particularly at the boomers, who are the people who were in the business world, earning their income back during that pre-Reagan era. They own their own homes. They've got pensions. They've got some savings. I mean, obviously not universally. A large cohort of the boomers are living in poverty and just getting by on Social Security. But when you look at, intergenerational wealth, that's where most of the wealth is. Among the four, arguably five generations that are alive right now. So I would submit to you that the reason they're not going in the streets is because they're more afraid of losing what they have than they are interested in fighting to get something. This isn't trying to get from 0 to 2. This is trying to prevent falling from 8 down to 6 on a scale of 1 to 10. You understand what I'm saying? And when you're afraid of what you're going to lose, you're less likely to take the kind of chances like, showing up at a protest that is really, the strikes, the Flint sit-down strike. Employers are less likely to shoot at you. I just can't imagine Walmart shooting at people. And workers are less likely to engage in truly disruptive strikes because they'll get fired, and that'll be the end of that. Or because they've got $50,000 in student debt, or because mom and dad or them have some equity in their house and they're desperately afraid of losing it. So the article was over at Naked Capitalism. It was titled, "Why is No One Fighting the New Robber Barons?" And, I look forward to getting Steve Fraser on. We'll probably get him on next week to talk about this. But I wanted to raise that.